it's really, really hard to build a small, medium, or big size business off on unhappy customers and on customers that don't stay with you for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So the first step is fixing the leaky bucket and figuring out why don't customers stay with me longer than a year or two or three. There really should be no reason. They don't want to go out and shop, and unless they are just looking for the cheapest price every year, and you can't break them of that mentality. But most of the time they're not, and so that's the first thing, fixing that, and then, like you said, knowing what the lifetime value is of the customer. That's difficult work. That's studying past data. That's look at my last 100 customers. How long did they stick it out with me? How much do they spend? What are they really worth to me as a business owner? And then that informs how much I can spend to go acquire more of them. And once you figure that out, you've got pretty close to a money printing machine where okay, customer's worth 10 grand to me. I can spend up to 10 grand to go get them, and I can build out a sales team to do that, or I can do inbound marketing like we do with GreenPal or whatever to acquire more of them. And that's how you grow a business from $1 million to 3, 5, 10 and beyond.
Hello, and welcome to the Generate Your Value podcast. I'm your co-host, Andy McDowell, founder and owner of Generate Your Value, providing self-leadership, leadership, and business coaching services for corporate executives and business owners.
And I'm Zach Levy, your other co-host. I run a nationwide financial service business with my wife, Megan.
Together, Zach and I have the intention to bring you tips, concepts, ideas, suggestions, stories, and analogies from A to Z, which will help you to grow your personal brand and leadership skills in such a way that joy, happiness, and success, as you define it for yourself, are achieved.
We hope to use our gifts, talents, and experiences in business and leadership to generate value in your life. And with that being said, let's move to our topic for today.
Hello, and welcome to the Generate Your Value podcast. My name is Andy McDowell, your host for today. Can't thank you enough for taking that valuable resource in your life called time, that finite resource, to spend it with us for the next 45 minutes to an hour. I'm bringing you a great guest today. His name is Bryan Clayton. Typically comes from Nashville, but today he's sitting in, I just found out, Rio de Janeiro, of all places. And kind of coincidence, I was watching a show earlier today from Brazil.
Awesome.
So we've got some synchronicity going on.
It's a neat culture down
through the
here.
universe from that standpoint. So as we typically do, let me read Bryan's bio, and then I'll start peppering him with questions so you get to know him a little bit better as a human being. So Bryan Clayton isn't just another CEO. He's a visionary and a groundkeeper, a breaker, and those are the type of people we like to bring you. As the mastermind behind GreenPal, an innovative online marketplace dubbed the Uber for lawn care by Entrepreneur Magazine, he's revolutionizing the way homeowners connect with local lawn care professionals. Boasting over 200,000 active users, GreenPal pulses with thousands of transactions daily. A testament to Bryan's knack for understanding market needs. But here's the twist. GreenPal isn't Bryan's first rodeo. Before this digital marvel, he birthed Peachtree Inc, transforming it into one of Tennessee's landscaping giants. Under his leadership, it soared to an impressive $10 million in annual revenue, ultimately catching the eye of Lusa Holdings, which acquired it in 2013. So, Bryan, welcome to the podcast. Can't thank you enough for coming in to share your story with a listening audience.
Thanks for having me on, Andy. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So, the Uber for the lawn care business. Can you give our listening audience, the way we usually like to start is give you the opportunity in the first 5 or 10 minutes to kind of tell your, we heard a little bit about the life story, but to kind of fill in the breaks between the lines, so to speak, of your story, from wherever you want to start, whether it's your childhood and 2 years old or college or wherever it is. Pick a point in your timeline give our listening audience an idea of what you've done to date, so they might have that opportunity to connect with you.
Yeah, sounds good. So today, I'm CEO and co-founder of GreenPal, which is an app that works like Instacart or DoorDash or Uber, but for gardening services. So if you have a home or you rent a home, you need to get somebody to mow the yard. Rather than calling around on Facebook or Angie's List or Google, you just download GreenPal, you pop your address in, and you get 5 quotes back in 60 seconds. And you can hire the lawn mowing service that you want to work with right through the app. And you find them, get quotes, schedule them, and pay them right through the app. And then if everything goes well, you just push a button, and it just happens every week or every 2 weeks throughout the whole lawn mowing season. So you kind of set it and forget it. And GreenPal is a now 12-year overnight success. My 2 co-founders and I have been at this for over a decade, building the marketplace. Now it's nationwide in the United States. So anywhere in the United States it has a city that's over 15,000 people, you can use GreenPal to order a lawn mowing service. Around 300,000 people using the app every week. And before GreenPal, I actually had a lawn mowing business. I started mowing grass in high school as a way to make extra money. My dad got tired of watching me play Nintendo all day. He said, "Hey, get off your ass. I got a gig for you. You're gonna go mow the neighbor's yard." He made me go cut the neighbor's grass, and I got paid $20 for that. And I was hooked. I was hooked on owning my own business ever since. I've never had a job. I've never worked for anybody. I've always had my own little small business, and stuck with that lawn mowing business all through high school, all through college. And like you mentioned earlier, I built it into one of the larger landscaping businesses in the Southeast. And then eventually it was acquired by a national company. And so after that, I took some time off and thought, well, I want to do a tech startup now. Why can't I do that? And it was kind of naivete as an asset. I didn't realize how challenging it was going to be. But I had an idea that GreenPal should exist. Somebody was going to build it. Why couldn't it be me? And recruited 2 co-founders. We started working on it. So that's 23 years in one industry, kind of from every angle I guess you could see it from.
Yeah, so you and I have that in common. I did the lawn cutting business too. I had a father that kicked me in the rear end and said, "You need something to fill up your time besides skateboarding and doing all this other stuff. You need to start learning how to make ends meet for yourself." Just said, "I'll buy the lawnmower. I'll buy the lawnmower, but it's going to be your blood, sweat, and tears.
You got to do the pushing.
It's going to be out there pushing it, and so forth." So that was my first start into making a buck. Got 5-6 neighbors' business, and the hardest part was getting the phone call going, "Oh, I got a party tomorrow. Can you come over and cut the lawn now?"
Well, the cool thing about a lawn mowing business or any service business like that is that you can learn 80-90% of what goes into running a business from just running a basic lawn mowing business. You learn things like marketing, operations, accounting, bookkeeping, customer service. You learn how to do things like calculate if you're making a profit or not. It took me an hour to service this customer. I charged them X, Y, and Z. By the time I paid fuel, insurance, equipment, did I make any money or not? And you don't learn that unless you're in business. And so something like a lawn mowing business is a great way for anybody to cut their teeth on what it means to run a business. And then you don't have to stay in it for 15, 20 years like I did. You can apply that to another business. But what a great way to learn the 80-20 on what it means to run your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of on the same scale as a side gig, right? You work in a corporate job and you got a favorite hobby that you're passionate about, and you're good enough that you could build a product or service that people would be willing to spend money for, right? And you can keep it small. You can learn about what it takes to run a business, all the mechanics, like you said, and just keep it at the size that is comfortable for you. But you learn a ton out of it.
Exactly.
Should you decide to jump ship from the corporate world and make it a full-time business, you're about 80-90% on the way. So you didn't feel like you had a need to college. Was it the actual cutting of the lawn that you were passionate about, or was it counting the almighty 20s and actually making money that was the draw for you? You know, you could take or leave cutting lawns, but it was the fact that you were making money and somehow providing for yourself. What was the draw to say, man, college is not for me. I'm going to keep
Yeah,
going here.
it's a really good question. So, all of the above. Couple things. So, no, I did not want to go to college. I thought it was a waste of time, and as it turns out, it was. I did go to business school, but I went at night. So it took me 7 years, and I went nights from 6 to 10 o'clock every night for 7 years, and got a business degree. But at the time, I was running a small business during the day, mowing yards.
Mm-hmm.
And I would show up to night school with like grass all over me, smelling like gasoline. My classmates hated me. and I would be in a marketing class, or I would be in a business operations class, or whatever. And I would be like, this is not how small business actually works. And it was this weird thing because at the time I was running a pretty decent sized business. I had 2 or 3 employees, you know, 200 or 300 grand a year in revenue, and I was thinking there's a disconnect here between what I'm learning in business school and what actually goes into running a small business. So yeah, it pretty much was a waste of time and money. But I got it done, and what little I did learn from business school, I did write a business plan when I graduated college. And I didn't really want to be a lawn guy my whole life. To your point, no, I did not. I was not passionate about the lawn mowing business, and I'm still not. I hate the smell of fresh cut grass. I pray to God that I never have to mow another yard again in my whole life. So I actually hated it. But I was passionate about building something bigger than myself. You know, I was passionate about building something that had a great reputation in the little marketplace that I was in, that was prospering, that was thriving, that was growing. I guess I was passionate about winning. And the owning a lawn mowing business kind of gave me access to that. And I could say, wow, look, I just started with just me and a push mower, and now we've got 80 trucks going out of this big building every day. And all of that started from that. And I didn't do it all myself. I had a great team around me, but it was fun to be a part of it. And fun to kind of like build something and put it into the world. So that the grass was the vehicle for that.
Right.
And I think the advice, follow your passion, is bad advice, because it's really, really rare that you can make a living and make any profit off of something you're super passionate about. Some people can, you know, but it's very, very rare. So I think if you can get passionate about the process, if you can get passionate about the results, if you can get passionate about the journey, you don't have to be passionate about the thing. And that's how it was for me then and now. You know, I still don't like lawn mowing, but we have the world's largest network of lawn care services you can hire from a smartphone with GreenPal. Am I passionate about lawn mowing? No. But I am passionate about building a big product that touches the mass market. Building something that thousands of people use every day. That's a lot of fun. And so I think it's important to remind yourself of that, that follow your passion is probably bad advice.
Yeah, I still think it's important to find a passion, but to your point, it's something in the business that you're passionate about. Like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be the product or the service that you're offering. It could be you're passionate about customer service. You're an extrovert. You love people. You love the process of selling and helping people out, and that's what you're passionate about. And
that's right. You don't have to do what you love, but you have to find the love in what you're doing. And so for me, a lot of that came from actually the employees that worked for the business. That was a lot of fun. We at any given time, you know, I had 150 people that depended on the business. And so watching them come to work for me as an entry-level laborer and grow in the business into a manager, and I'm just seeing that, you know, they're driving a better car today than they were 5 years ago when they started working for me. They just put a down payment on their house. Their kids go to good schools. They're getting access to the American dream as part of this thing that I'm a part of. And that was a lot of fun. I loved that. Hated mowing yards.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important to find the love in what you're doing.
Yeah, did you guys get beyond just mowing yards? I mean, did you get into landscape design or actually planting of plants and that kind of thing?
Yes, yeah, all of that. As time goes on and you're in that particular industry, it's impossible to scale it on just the weekly $35 lawn mowing. You have to get into bigger contracts, installation services, like you said, trees, shrubs, irrigation systems. We did snow plowing. We did, and as time went on, we grew the business to be solely a commercial business. So we would only do office parks, apartments, HOAs, things like that. And that was actually the inspiration for building GreenPal, because I grew that business from a residential business to a commercial business, but we would still get phone calls every single day, people begging us to come mow their yard, because they would call 10 different lawn care services and nobody would ever call them back. And so we would keep a list of names and phone numbers by the phone. We had a value in running that business to always try to be helpful no matter what. And so we would refer out 5 or 10 different service providers. And so in effect, we were kind of like this little connector service. And so when that business got acquired, when I sold it, I thought, I was basically kind of a Uber for lawn mowing service on a very small scale in Nashville, Tennessee. Somebody's going to build an app that does all of that stuff that we were doing manually. Why can't that be me? And so that was the idea for building GreenPal, was the hand cranking that we were doing in the first business.
So what would you say? So in my corporate career, I worked for Boeing on the services side, and everything was project based, right? It was all labor. Our strategic advantage was the intelligence inside my team's heads. And the one thing I really had to pay attention to was the number of projects coming down the pike and what my staffing level was, right? That was where my boss and I had the most conversations, was about when was it appropriate to hire that next person? Did we have enough?
Yeah.
Did we have enough business in the pipeline to justify hiring another person? And that's what I paid attention to the most on my dashboard, if you will. What would you say in your landscaping business was that one thing that if you had a dashboard on your business, the number one thing you were always keeping your eye on was what?
Well, it's so funny how it's very similar to what you just described, because in that business, running a landscaping business, and in the business that we're in now, we're basically in the business of selling man hours, selling labor hours. And so the unit that's flowing through the business is a labor hour. And so we have to be cognizant of, okay, what does it cost to deliver that hour of labor? And is that mapping to what we're billing the customer? And I made a huge mistake in the early days of running my first business, was just throwing bodies at a problem. So we can't hit a deadline, we aren't getting all the work done, it's not to a certain quality level, whatever it is, let's just throw more people at it. And I imagine that's kind of similar to what you're describing, and kind of that tension of, no, you can't just throw more people at it. You have to look for, where is the waste, where is the process inefficient. It could be, for us, a lot of times it was routing through town, avoiding traffic, going from stop to stop as quick as possible, coming up with a standard operating procedure of, first you get the lawnmower off the truck, then you mow, then you trim, then you blow off the grass clippings, then you walk around one time. That way you make sure you don't have to go back. So that standardized process, and finding and driving the operational efficiency in the business is really what capitalism is all about. Big governments don't do that. Big bureaucracies don't do that. They don't have the pressure, the evolutionary pressure to do that. And so even as something as lawn mowing, we would look for what is the most efficient way to do these 20 stops in a day and not have to go back and fix them and make sure the customer's happy. And so that was the main thing that we were always optimizing, and it never ended. And now with GreenPal, that's what our software helps lawn care services do. And so let's say you're a one-man band, you want to do 20 or 30 customers a week. You don't know the first thing about operational efficiency, and you don't know the first thing about all of these things that go into running an efficient business. So it's our platform's job to help you through that. It's like, okay, here's your 20 customers. Here's the fastest route to go, but from stop to stop. Here's what they expect. Here's all the details that they want, so you don't have to like go back and fix something because you forgot.
Yeah.
So giving them a business in a box, so to speak.
Project management in a box.
Right. And that's all we do is focus on that. You know, it's really hard to be good at anything unless you just focus on one use case. And we've spent 10 years focusing on this one use case of grass is this tall, I need somebody to make it short and nice and neat, and we don't really do anything else.
Yeah, so back in that day, how difficult was it for you to find labor, to find the resources? And are you kind of glad that you did that pre-pandemic?
Whew, yeah, it was hard then, and it's hard now, and I don't know if it was harder then or if it's harder now. That's a really good question. Sometimes I wonder. For us, that was one of the biggest choke points was finding good laborers, bringing them in, training them, and keeping them for longer than 6 weeks. And that was one of the hardest parts about the business. And for 5 years, I would beat my head against the wall, and I would just be pissed off at the world. Oh, nobody wants to work. Nobody takes pride in their work anymore, and it's their fault. And actually, when you're in business, everything is your fault. And so I had to like look in the mirror and say, like, you dummy, you built this. You need to work on the business and quit working in the business. And so I spent a year building what I called Lawn Care University. And so we would hire somebody, and rather than it taking 3 months to train them on everything that it means to be a good gardener, we compressed that down into 2 weeks. And it was on the job, and it was a training system with module based, and this was 15, 20 years ago, and it was multimedia, and it had like little tests and stuff. And now you can get this stuff out of the box. There's platforms that help you do this.
Right.
A lot of small business owners still don't do it, but it's a lot easier now than it was then. And so that helps solve that problem where it's like, okay, turnover still sucks, but at least we can train somebody in 2 weeks rather than 3 months. And so we can at least, not have to bleed so bad on that side of the problem. And so if you can kind of look at some of these big challenges that your business faces by thinking through, okay, what is the system that I can build to help me solve this problem rather than just beating my head against the wall, facing it 10 times a day? It's harder to do that. In business, you're going to have to work really hard, but you're also going to have to do the difficult work. And it's important to make time for the difficult work and know the difference between hard work and difficult work. And so building Lawn Care University was difficult work. Hard work is just going through the frustrating experience of hiring somebody, losing them in a month, and retraining somebody else manually. That's hard work. Difficult work is building the system that solves it. And so, and we still do it to this day with GreenPal. That's at least now we're a systems-based business where it's all technology-based, but it's very much the same problems. As a business owner, as a founder, you have to become a never-ending problem-solving machine. And just because you solve one problem doesn't mean you're done. It just means you get to solve 5 more.
No, it's a life of continuous improvement.
That's right. That's what makes it fun.
I have a good friend that's in the handyman business, and he's taken the same route that you did in building, as you called it, a university.
Yes.
Where he trains his staff in customer service and best way to actually execute on the job and so forth and so on, so that since he's got labor issues as well and needs some kind of skilled labor, he can get them up and running a lot faster, just like you did.
And it's really hard to build that. It's really hard for him to build that system. All of his competitors are probably just complaining and just doing the work themselves and just repeating the same 10 problems every day. But he's smart enough to know, okay, I'm going to build a process, a system that my competitors don't have. And that's how you build defensibility between you and 10 other companies that are doing the same thing you're doing.
Well, he only
but it's not fun. There's no roadmap for this stuff. You got to kind of make it up as you go.
He only services the Atlanta area, but he's outsourced that university to other people in the business in other
that's
markets. Awesome. Because he does a bang-up job with it. So you and your business had to your staff is all over the city. You're kind of having to remote lead or remote manage folks that are spread during the working hours all across Nashville at the time. What was your command and control like? What was did you have site leaders or team leaders that were responsible for making sure the work got done and that kind of thing? Or how did you go about dealing with that aspect of your business?
It was something that I did wrong for a long time. It was very much so ultimately the business grew to around 150 people, and there would be 90 crews going out every day. Yeah. Usually a crew could be one guy or two guys or three guys, depending on the size of the job. And it was very much modeled in duplication, in the sense that okay, I started with just me, and then I got me and a helper, then I got me and another helper, and then okay, now I want to replicate that to another crew. So it's going to be me running one crew, and then one of my helpers can go work by himself for a while, and okay, let's get him another guy, and it's slowly building it out. So that was a good solid foundation, but where that kind of gets tricky and where the wheels fall off of that is like I mentioned earlier, you just throw bodies at problems. And then the next thing you know, your payroll is, 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 grand a week, and you don't have enough money in the bank to make payroll. And that happened to me several times throughout the 15 years of running that business. And so if you're not careful in terms of mapping what these individual crews are doing in the field and what you're billing them out for. And in those days, it was very much a manual process. Now there's systems and platforms you can buy off the shelf that help you with this, but it was very much pen and pad and spreadsheets and bean counting. But it was the difference between staying in business and making a profit versus going out of business. And a lot of service-based businesses like that go out of business because they don't do the difficult work of constantly reconciling, okay, these crews that I'm sending out, are they actually unit economic sound? Are they contributing margin to the business, or am I losing money on jobs? Most small business owners in this industry don't know either way. The only metric they look at is their money in the bank, and that's not really a way to run a small or big business.
No.
And so that's how we built it. That was kind of the operating core. Was there would be a crew foreman. He was responsible for all of the clients. He could be by himself. He could have a helper. He could have as many as 4 or 5 people, depending on the size of projects we would give him. And then there would be an operations manager that would manage 4 or 5 of those guys, and then there was a GM that managed all of them, and that was kind of the operating core. And then on top of that, we had a sales engine at the core of the business where we would go out and prospect and outsell our competitors on these types of contracts. And so I did that myself for a very long time, and then I had a sales manager, and at the end of the business, we had 3 or 4 salespeople. All they were doing was selling business, and mapping that to what the operating core was doing, and making sure that they were in sync and jiving was always a challenge. So it was a tough business to run. It was very, very hands-on, and I used to joke that, if I went away for longer than 2 or 3 days, I would come back and there would just be a smoldering crater where the business was, because it was always very much like you had to have your hands on it. That's why when I started GreenPal, I wanted to start a business that I could run from anywhere in the world. I wanted to run a systems-based business, a technology business. Took a while to get it going, but now, I travel 10, 11 months out of the year, and this business is growing. Our team is 47 people, and I can run GreenPal from anywhere, and that's a lot of fun. And that is baked in 15 years of kind of being chained to my office, being chained to my desk running that first company.
Yeah, I know all about that. With Boeing, I was 50% of the year I was somewhere else in the world, being on site with clients and working projects. So let's stay on that sales track. With the landscaping business, you had a team of people that was out there getting business and prospecting. How is it that they would generate leads and find the business, and how did that translate now over to GreenPal? Was there anything about the prospecting, the sales process you had in landscaping that was translatable into the platform that you built with GreenPal?
Yeah, it's funny how different the two journeys are. So the first landscaping business was, I guess it was about 5 or 6 years in, I realized I wasn't in the landscaping business at all. I wasn't in the lawn maintenance business. I wasn't in the business of planting trees. I was actually in the sales business. Mm-hmm. And I had to figure out a way to connect what it was we did with the potential clientele that appreciated what we did. And that took a while to figure out. Second business, GreenPal, is totally different. It's all inbound. So we don't have salespeople that call people up, hey, can we come cut your grass? It's, hey, we are where you are searching when you need a lawn mowing business. So it's very much inbound. So it's, I need a lawn mowing service, lawn care near me, GreenPal pops up. So the two are very different in terms of how we marketed the first company and now how we market GreenPal. But there is one thing that's the same, and it's use cases, not personas. And so I think a lot of times when people are talking about marketing, they're talking about, oh, you need to have this persona of who your customer is and what they look like and who they are and what their demographic is and all of this stuff. And yeah, maybe that's important, but what I have found is more important is use cases. It's, okay, what is the use case of the product and service that you are delivering, and how does that map to what people are looking for and needing? So with GreenPal, the use case is, it's the easiest way to get a lawn mowing service today to mow your yard, even if your grass is 4 feet tall. Mm-hmm. It is not a private gardener. It is not a landscape design service. It is not, I don't care if you live in $1 million home or a $100,000 home. That is what it does. That is the use case. Peachtree, my landscaping company, was very similar. It's, okay, if you're managing 30 or 40 locations over a geographical area and you don't want to deal with 40 different vendors, you want to deal with one, boy, do I have a product for you. And that is the use case. And that's all we focused on. That's all we attacked. And we didn't worry about anything else. We went after the facilities managers that were looking for a partner to manage a big portfolio of locations. And we sold into that, and we didn't really try to compete anywhere else. And that's how we built a $10 million business, which is focusing on one use case, being the best in the market at that, and then connecting what we did with what they needed. And you can say, okay, I'll mow your okay, McDonald's, we'll mow your yard for we'll mow the lawn at the McDonald's for $50. Well, there's 1,000 different people they can call to do that. But what we would do is we would say, hey, facility services manager for McDonald's, we noticed at your location, outside of Nashville, that here's some pictures of the drive-through, and it's full of cigarette butts. Now, I know that you probably have people that handle that, and you have systems that make sure that there aren't supposed to be cigarette butts there, but you can see it's like there's more cigarette butts than mulch. And here's some before and after pictures. We went ahead and cleaned all those up because we believe that if there's no cigarette butts in the drive-through, you'll be able to boost sales on extra value meals. Mm-hmm. And so we would tie what we did to what their objectives were. And we would do the same thing with apartment complexes. We would say, apartment complex in Brentwood, Tennessee, What is your occupancy rate? 89%? Oh, okay. Well, we hear that average is 95%, and we believe we can get you to 95% with these 5 landscaping enhancements. And here's how we're going to roll them out. And so we're no longer talking about cheapest grass cutting service. We're talking about how do we get you where you're trying to go. And so that's how we grew that business to 8 figures, and never would have been able to do it if we had just been doing what everybody else was doing.
Yeah, it was more about being a strategic partner to say we want to have skin in the game in your success.
That's right.
And what we can offer is having a team of people that come to your facility at a given time. And if we're only looking at the outside part of your facility, here's all the list of myriad of things that we can do to get you to have that picture of what you want the product to look like. And some of it involves grass and some of it doesn't. It's really about the aesthetics of the place.
That's right. And it's not just that competing on price wasn't a good strategy. Mm-hmm. Competing on price was impossible because what a little dirty secret in that business, and maybe even others, was that buyers of these services would hire a company knowing they would lose money on the contract, but they were the cheapest, and not care if they were going to go out of business in a year. And they would just rinse and repeat every year or 2 or 3, and they don't care they're destroying your business by signing you up for a contract that you're going to lose money on. And that would just happen all day long, all over the place, where new entrants into the market, not knowing what they were doing, would compete on price, sign up for a contract, and go out of business a year or 2 later. And there would just be a new batch of them every couple of years. And so it's not just like competing on price was just bad strategy. It was just, it was impossible. You would go out of business.
Well, it's also short-sighted.
Yeah.
One of the things I talk to my business owner about in terms of my clients is about the lifelong relationship that you have with a client. When you're looking at sales and marketing dollars and those type things, are you only doing the analysis over the next 3 months or 12 months of your business in terms of your capture cost for a client, or are you looking at a long term, like, I hope to have this customer for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, whatever your goals are for your business. And because I'm looking at the lifetime revenue for the customer, I'm willing to spend a little bit more sales and marketing dollars on that customer to capture it, because I'm looking at the big picture as opposed to just whatever my sales and marketing budget is for the year.
Yeah, exactly. It's really, really hard to build a small, medium, or big size business off on unhappy customers, and on customers that don't stay with you for a long time. Mm-hmm. So the first step is fixing the leaky bucket and figuring out, why don't customers stay with me longer than a year or 2 or 3? There really should be no reason. They don't want to go out and shop, and unless they are just looking for the cheapest price every year, and you can't break them of that mentality. But most of the time they're not, and so that's the first thing, fixing that, and then, like you said, knowing what the lifetime value is of the customer. That's difficult work. That's studying past data. That's look at my last 100 customers. How long did they stick it out with me? How much do they spend? What are they really worth to me as a business owner? And then that informs how much I can spend to go acquire more of them. And once you figure that out, you've got pretty close to a money printing machine where okay, customer's worth 10 grand to me. I can spend up to 10 grand to go get them, and I can build out a sales team to do that, or I can do inbound marketing like we do with GreenPal or whatever to acquire more of them. And that's how you grow a business from $1 million to 3, 5, 10, and beyond.
And what are you doing to analyze your best customers? If you got 100 customers and you say these 10, for whatever reason, are my best customers, well, what is it that makes them your best customer? And can you find more of those?
That's right.
Just focus on those sets of customers as opposed to saying anybody with a wallet and some cash in their wallet is a customer. I'm
Yeah,
just
very true.
going after the almighty dollar at whatever cost, and all it does is create a big anchor for you and sinks you.
Yeah, in the early days when you're trying to cobble together your first 100K or 250K of revenue, you kind of have to do anything anything you get your hands on.
Mm-hmm.
But as time goes on, like you said, you need to niche down and figure out who is the ideal customer for me. One thing we found with running my landscaping business was we had the 80-20 rule where 20% or 80% of the profit came from 20% of the customers.
Yep.
And then on the flip side, 80% of the customer service and problems and headaches would come from 20% of the customers, and it was the inverse of the unprofitable customers. and so we had to like really make the hard decision of, okay, we have to get shed of the bottom 10% of customers every year, and go after the ones that we're a better fit for. And when you're running a business like that, you have to do that difficult work. Otherwise, like you said, you'll have this business where you're trying to be all things to all people, and you end up hating it because you're not really good at any one thing, and it's just like organized chaos. It's hard to fire a customer, but sometimes you have to.
Well, the hardest part is just recognizing the fact that your customer is not a commodity.
Yeah.
Right. They're not. Every customer is not Joe Smith. That's exactly the same. You're not rubber stamping every single customer. Every customer is unique and different, and brings a different value, if you will, to your business. And it's a lot of work, but you have to figure out which ones are the better ones. How can you attract that set, and get rid of ones that are not really bringing much to the table for you.
Exactly. And by the way, when you get rid of them, try to hand them off to somebody that wants them. Mm-hmm. We would deal with this with my first business. We would try to put them in a place where, hey, here's 2 or 3 colleagues that we know that do this type of work, and so they're grateful to get it, and then they don't feel bad, and then maybe they may come back, or maybe they might give you a good recommendation. We do this with GreenPal. We're not a landscape design service. We're not a private gardening service. We're not a lot of things. We are the easiest way to make tall grass short at the touch of a button. But when we have somebody that comes through our customer support chat, and we identify that we're not a good fit for them, we give them 3 or 4 other websites they can go to that specialize in that thing. Yep. So then they're happy. They don't barbecue us on Trustpilot or on Google reviews or on Yelp. And I think that's a better way to run a business.
Mm-hmm. Well, go back to name my business, Generate Your Value, right? How is it you're going to generate value for every person that comes to your doorstep, whether they end up being a paying customer or not? How is it that I can add value to this person's day, even if
doesn't cost
I don't get
much
$1? Money.
Exactly.
Yep. It's value in what's called goodwill. And they're going to remember that, and maybe it comes back to you in some other fashion.
It's hard to measure. But a lot of things in life, whether it's dieting or relationships or building a business, you make these invisible deposits every single day, and you can't measure any one of them. But over the long haul, it always pays off.
And you educate the customer. Customers are not stagnant. Their needs may change. And on down the road, you would be a good fit for them. And if you educate them on that, they know, hey, I'm going to go see Bryan now because my needs have changed, and I think I'm a good fit for him now.
Or recommend you. Yeah. I mean that you're making deposits into that goodwill, and that also, by the way, is your brand. You're making deposits into the equity of what the brand is of the business, and you can make and the thing is, it doesn't cost any more to do a lot of this stuff. When we were running our first business and we would refer out people to smaller service providers, it didn't cost us any money to do that, and that helped out a lot of small business owners, and that helped out a lot of consumers, and maybe some of them came back to us and did some business later or not, but that gave me the idea for GreenPal. So as it turns out, that those deposits of goodwill are really the reason why we are where I am today, is because I decided that that's the type of business I wanted to be a part of.
Yeah. It's really about a mindset and an attitude, and that doesn't cost you any money.
That's right. That's right. It doesn't cost you any money at all.
Yeah. So you sold your landscaping business, and that enabled you to bootstrap GreenPal. Can you talk a little bit about pros, cons, what you like, what you didn't like about the bootstrapping process that enabled you to crank up GreenPal after selling the landscape business?
Yeah. So yeah, sold the landscaping company, and which was a great event for me because it wasn't like I was super wealthy or anything, but I didn't have to work anymore, and so I could kind of just do what I wanted to do after that. And so I made a decision that from that day on, I was just going to do what I wanted to do, and I wasn't going to work in a business I didn't enjoy being in. And so that's how I started GreenPal. Was okay. This is an interesting idea. I think it could touch the mass market. I think there could be maybe 1 million people using this one day, and so I think it would be fun to pour my life into this.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to work on it if I don't enjoy it. I'm not going to do anything I don't enjoy doing. And so the first thing, you read a lot of the tech press, and you read a lot of books on getting a tech startup going, and they tell you got to raise money. You got to go raise a bunch of money, and a lot of times you do, but that didn't appeal to me because I just sold a business, and now I'm having to run all over town and beg people for $20,000 checks, and I didn't really want to do that. I tried it, and it just wasn't fun. I thought, hey, I'm just going to put my head down and build a product that people want to use, and I don't care how long it takes. I'm just going to fund it off of its own revenues. It wasn't like I took all the money from the sale and plowed it in the GreenPal. I didn't do that because I didn't want to go backwards. Like I told you, I hate the smell of fresh cut grass. I never wanted to mow another yard again, so I kind of locked all that down. But now GreenPal had to kind of sing for its supper, and that kept us really maniacally focused from day one on customers because we needed them to use the product so we could figure out how to make the product better, and then we also just flat out needed the revenue. And so from our first 10 customers to our first 100 to our first 500 to our first 1,000, we really treated them like gold and listened to them and solicited their feedback because we wanted to make sure we could, A, keep them happy to keep them using the product, but B, make the product better so the mass market eventually could adopt it. And we're a decade in, and we're still doing that, listening to thousands of people every day. How do we make ordering a lawn mowing service quicker, cheaper, faster, smoother, more convenient, more reliable? And I think bootstrapping was the right course of action for us. Now, if I had to go back in time and do it all over again, the first thing I would do is raise a bunch of money because I now know all the things I needed to do. But back then, I didn't. Mm-hmm. If you had given me $5 million, I would have pissed it all away, and probably we wouldn't have built a successful business. I think venture capital and outside capital usually ruins more small businesses than it helps build and grow. And so I think if you're a first-time founder, I think bootstrapping is usually a better bet.
Well, as a business coach, I sit in the camp of your business plan. The number of pages in your business plan should match about the amount of time that you've been in business, right?
Yeah.
I've seen folks that sit down and write a business plan that's 50 pages long to launch a business from scratch. And I think they lose, how do I phrase this? They lose the thought or the notion that starting a business is a learning process, right? Your biggest section in your business plan should be labeled assumptions. Here's our assumptions about the business, that there's a market need out there, that pricing should be in this neighborhood, that the cost structure is X, and da-da-da-da-da. These are all our assumptions and why we wrote the business plan the way that it is. And our number one job after launch is to validate or invalidate those assumptions. And we got to change on the dime, if we invalidate an assumption and it's something different than we thought it was, we've got to pivot very quickly to change the business plan so that it runs off the new assumption.
That's exactly how I experienced it.
And I think that's what the bootstrapping process allowed you to do, and helped you hone in on that, because you were constantly getting the customer feedback and you were validating or invalidating your assumptions about the business and changing on the fly if you found something that was invalid. And
because
that's what
survival
enabled you to be
depends on it.
successful. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. If you don't do that, you die really quickly. Whereas if you raised $100K, $500K, $1 million, $2-3 million, you kind of set off on this journey of assumptions, and you just stay the course, and so and the feedback loop is a lot longer in terms of if it's working or not. And the reality is, going and sitting down at somebody's kitchen table sucks. sitting down at a Starbucks, listening to, and hearing somebody ream you out about how shitty your product is sucks. Mm-hmm. And nobody wants to do that. But if you got $1 million in the bank, you don't do that. You just stay behind the laptop and you keep working off your assumptions.
Yep.
But if you don't have any money and you got 10 grand of overhead that month, you got to keep that customer. So you go and you talk to them. You say, hey, Mrs. Smith, I noticed you signed up and used our product last month and you haven't been back. What's going on? Can I buy you a coffee at Starbucks? I'd love to hear everything that you liked about it and what you didn't like about it. And we have this new feature. I'd like for you to test it out, and I'll give you a $100 gift card to Amazon, and meet with your customer face to face, belly to belly. Survival depends on that. If you don't have any money, if you got a bunch of money, then you can kind of paper over that, and in a weird way, it kind of prevents you from not being successful.
Yeah, if there's one thing the listening audience takes away from our conversation today, I hope that's it.
Yeah,
because I think that's where most new business owners and those that are launching businesses fail, is they don't realize that that's their number one job, is to validate or invalidate things about their business model.
That's right, and it comes from one place. That's the customer. Mm-hmm. As simple as this stuff sounds, it's kind of like dieting. It's like we all know how to lose weight and get in shape, but it sucks and nobody wants to do it. And so we try to look for every other way to do it. Building a business is no different. It's the same exact thing.
Yeah. Well, Bryan, unfortunately, our time is coming to a close. I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing your story with the listening audience and your wisdom. But we do have one last question to ask you, and we ask every guest this question. Because we like to see what the answers are, where that thread is, if you will, amongst all the answers. And that question is, what do the words generate your value mean to you?
Ooh, generate your value. Well, I could answer that 100 different ways, but one I guess one way that's top of mind. Somebody was asking me yesterday. It was a new founder that I was kind of just helping out, and he was like, oh, I'm going to this networking event. I'm going to this networking event, and I can't get anybody to take me seriously. And it's like, and I had to tell him, it's like, it's not who you know, it's what you've built. And so I think in that context, don't even worry about networking. Like, build some cool stuff, and then people like your cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I think before you go try to network your way to success, I think it's important to generate your value and just put your nose down and spend a year or 5 years building something cool and successful that's thriving, that's helping people, and then your network grows from there. I see this mistake from a lot of new founders. They think that somebody's gonna like put them on, and it's like do cool stuff, and then that comes. And so that, to me, that's like top of mind right now for generate your value. It's not who you know, it's what you've built.
So if people want to reach out to you about GreenPal or talk to you about your story or network with you in some way, what's the best way that they could reach Bryan Clayton?
Yeah, life's too short to waste time mowing your yard, so just go to greenpal.com. Anybody wants to hit me up, Instagram's a good place to find me. I post a lot there, Bryan M. Clayton, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Just hit me up, and I'm available on both those.
So, once again, thank you so much for taking that valuable resource in your life called time to come spend it with us. For the listening audience, I hope, Bryan, we call them golden nuggets around here. We hope you, the listening audience, got some golden nuggets out of our conversation today that you can take and integrate into your business, into your life, into your leadership, whatever it may be, that it delivers value to your life in some way. And if you like what you heard in this, be sure to not only subscribe to the podcast, but also share it, because the value, the content gets created between Bryan and I in this conversation. But if it doesn't get out to the people and they actually consume the content, then can we truly say that the value was delivered? So we can't encourage you enough to share this episode if it brought meaning to your life, so that others might be able to get something out of it as well. So that being said, we're here every week with guests like Bryan. We're available on all the major podcast platforms, and now YouTube. We're on video this year. We hope you'll check out other episodes of the podcast. So with that being said, have a great day, have a great week, and we'll see you next time here on the Generate Your Value podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of the Generate Your Value podcast. If you find our conversations to be useful in your life, I invite you to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode.
You can find me online at Instagram at @the_Zach.Levy, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
For information on my coaching services, visit my website at www.generateyourvalue.com. You can also find me and my company on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Simply search for Generate Your Value on those platforms.
Once again, thanks for joining us for today's podcast, and we invite you to generate your value in this world.